Inside the human body, trillions of cells are hard at work, and we're introduced to the newbie red blood cell, Rebecca, in the artery. Rebecca is delivering oxygen, and we can see that she is red-colored due to the chemical hemoglobin. All of a sudden, the vascular endothelium, which is the wall of the blood vessel, exploded. A swarm of wild pneumococcus bacteria appeared. Just as they were about to attack the other cells, an army of white blood cells from the neutrophil division swooped in and decapitated the gang of germs. Neutrophils are the first line of defense against germs and make up more than half of all white blood cells. The aftermath saw Rebecca trembling. Neutrophil Whitman noticed Rebecca and checked her out, even though she is only an A cup. While cold and aloof on the outside, Whitman behaved like Tony Chopper when praised. Despite the cleanup effort, Paul, a pneumococcus bacteria, managed to escape. Rebecca continued with her task of delivering carbon dioxide to the lungs. It must be noted that carbon dioxide is transported as hydrogen carbonate ions in the blood plasma and not inside red blood cells. Having a sense of direction on par with Roronoa Zorro, Rebecca bumped into many valves in the veins, which prevent the backflow of blood. In the midst of getting lost, Rebecca stumbled upon Paul, who is studying the transport network to the lungs. Paul lunged aggressively towards Rebecca as she scrambled away for her life. Rebecca had a great fall as Paul extended his tentacles towards her, attempting to penetrate her orofacial. In this dangerous moment, Whitman came rushing to Rebecca's aid. To his dismay, Paul threw a smokescreen and bacterial capsule onto Whitman and skedaddled off. The function of the capsule is questionable. The closest metaphor is the capsule impeding the increase in lactic acid secretion, though the mechanism is still unclear. The couple rushes off to find Paul, which Whitman explained can cause not just respiratory diseases, such as pneumonia, but they can also attack other internal organs, causing inflammation in the membrane surrounding the brain. Suddenly, Whitman's receptor popped out from his cap and started tingling, signaling that bacteria or foreign bodies are nearby, which Rebecca finds very uncool. After finding out that Paul was finding his direction to the lungs, Whitman decided to accompany Rebecca, who is lost on her way to deposit the carbon dioxide. On the way, we were introduced to the cute platelets, which are unloading clotting factor 4 calcium needed for blood clotting. While lamenting that his receptors have been ringing non-stop, they were interrupted by an announcement from Helper T-Cell sitting in the commanding center that killer T-cells have been deployed. Killer T-cells are specialized white blood cells that recognize and destroy foreign bodies, and they came marching out from the lymphatic vessel. Killer T-cells warned Rebecca that pneumococcus bacteria do not have the ability to synthesize compounds needed for their own survival, and thus, nutrient-rich red blood cells are often targeted by them to be robbed and killed through hemolysis, and this scared the crap out of Rebecca. But they have to get going. The merry band of two finally reached the lungs, which are responsible for taking in oxygen and excreting carbon dioxide. As Paul bid farewell to Rebecca, he sensed something amiss. While the rest of the white blood cells are on high alert, Rebecca is busy getting lost in the numerous capillaries surrounding the alveoli. The lumen of capillaries is narrow and only allows one red blood cell to squeeze through at a time. Rebecca entered the capillary surrounding one of the alveoli. Alveoli are air sacs where gas exchange takes place. Suddenly, her cargo of CO2 started shaking, and Paul emerged. Turns out, Paul has been in Rebecca's cargo. Rebecca wanted to escape, but noticed that it only exposes nutrient-rich blood coming back from the small intestine to the danger and decided to contain Paul by shutting the door. It was in this Yama de Kudasai moment. A foot broke through the vent. It was Whitman using transmigration. He managed to slide through the walls of blood vessels and reach the alveolus. It turns out, Whitman noticed that his receptor stopped buzzing the moment Rebecca parted and figured Paul was hitching a ride in her package. Paul broke out and attempted to attack the nutrient-rich blood. A fierce fight ensued. with Paul fencing off Whitman's attack with his capsule before going on the offensive. The fight eventually brought them to the bronchus. However, blood cells are not supposed to be able to appear here under normal conditions. Nevertheless, Paul was tricked and trapped by what can only be assumed to be mucus. As Paul and Rebecca sip their tea, they watch Paul being transported by Celia into a sneeze rocket and launched out of the body with a loud achoo.